So in this video, we're going to see why the real interest rate is a way more important measure than nominal interest rate. Let's take a look. So first and foremost, what is nominal? What is real interest rate? So as many things, nominal is what you see. So if you go to get a loan and you see 5% interest, or you have savings and you see 3% interest on those savings, well, that is the nominal rate. Real interest rate is that nominal rate adjusted for inflation. Simply put, take that rate, take away the inflation amount. So if it's 5% nominal, 2% inflation, your real interest rate is 3%. There's other things that we can do about calculating rate of returns with taxes and whatnot, but let's just leave that for another video. So the big thing that's important in this is to understand how real interest rates change over time. So if we look at historical levels, nominal interest rates have fluctuated a lot in the pre-2% inflation eras. So if you go back to the 70s and 80s, we had really high nominal interest rates. You could hear your parents possibly say, when we bought a house, interest rates were in the double digits. But what's also true in that time period is that inflation was also in the double digits. So the real interest rate, which is that nominal rate minus inflation, was actually not that different than what it is now. If you think about real interest rate and why it's good, I like to think about it when I look at purchasing just about anything. So I'm a coffee lover. So let's say I'm thinking about buying a coffee machine, and I could either buy it this year or next year. Obviously, having it now, I'll enjoy it a little bit more, but let's just say that I just want it before I die, and that whether I have it now or next year doesn't really change much. I'm just looking at this from a financial perspective. Well, the two things I want to consider to know, like, how much does it really cost me to get that machine now versus in a year's time, is to look at the real interest rate. So let's just keep that in mind. So let's say, keep it simple, the machine's only 1,000. Good machines are more than that, but let's say it's 1,000. So if your interest rate that you can get, nominal interest rate, is 5%, you know that after a year, you're going to have 1,050 if you put that money aside instead of buying this machine. And let's say this machine is currently selling for 1,000. So if you buy it right now, you could afford it. And if you buy it in a year's time, well, that price has gone up. If the price goes up from 1,000 to 1,050, well, then you'd have your nominal interest rate be 5% and your inflation be 5%. So nominal minus your real minus your inflation is going to give you 0%, and therefore it's equivalent. And it's exactly the same. You could spend that $1,000 now and get your machine, or wait a year and accumulate that interest and then buy the same machine, and you're going to pay the whole amount that you earned of interest plus your initial amount, that 1,050. So if real interest rate is equal to 0 from a financial perspective only, if we're speaking about just this one good, like not inflation as a whole, but the inflation, the price increase of this specific good, so it's not really inflation, but let's just say that's the case, you would be equally well off in both situations. There is nothing to gain. If, on the other hand, your rate of return is like 5%, but the price increase on that good is only 2%, well, then you're paying a premium to getting access to it now. You're paying a 1,050 equivalent in a year, and it would only cost you 1,020. So you would get that extra 3%, that extra $30 of interest. So by waiting out, you're saving money, or you're accumulating some wealth, some interest. But the opposite could also be true. There are instances where I decided to buy something more rapidly than I had intended because I could foresee that for various reasons the price would go up with this good. One of those reasons could be, in the past, when I bought one of my coffee machines, was that Canada and the US had very similar exchange rate values, and then we had a big period of depreciation in the value of our currency, and therefore our currency was weaker. So all goods that weren't produced in Canada were now becoming more expensive because our currency was worth less. So all of those imported goods would become more expensive. So if you foresee that this good's going to go up by 10% in price from one year to the next, and your borrowing rate or your savings rate is 5%, well, in that case, you're better off to buying it now, because in a year's time, that $1,000 will get you $1,050 at that 5% interest rate. But now the coffee machine's costing $1,100. So for you to be able to afford it, you have to shell out an extra $50. So you have to keep that in mind. It's not as clear cut as what's the interest rate that you have to pay, but you have to look at it from, well, how much am I gaining or losing by buying this now versus waiting it out? That's a better metric to look at, and it gives you an idea like, should I wait or should I buy this product now? You could apply that to houses, cars, just about anything, to give you a better sense of the cost of waiting versus not. Obviously, when you think about a house and some other things like that, you have to also consider that if you own it 1 year before, well, then you're giving up you don't have to pay rent for that year. There's other things that have to be considered. But just for this one product, just thinking, I either want it, let's say it's a snowboard and we're in April, I either want it now to be used in December next year, or I can buy it in December. What makes more sense? Well, this kind of thought process would help a lot there, because you're not going to use a product anyways. So if it's the same product, one period or the other, and you're not going to use it in between, this really helps to determine, should you buy now or wait it out? What makes more financial sense? Hopefully this was a cool real life application of real interest rates and how it could be useful in your own decisions. Talk to you soon. If you found this video interesting, please consider subscribing or joining my class where I guide you to apply and expand on the information found in these videos to real life examples. Have a good day.